Welcome into Forte Catholic. My name is Taylor Schroll, and today I'm going to be sharing a Catholic perspective on Disney Plus's Andor series. This is a prequel to Rogue One, which is a prequel to the original Star Wars movie. I'm going to be sharing some of the things that I like, some of the things that I didn't like, and ultimately how it connects to our Catholic faith. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you do, please hit that subscribe button. Let's jump in. In this first season of Andor on Disney Plus, it's 12 episodes, and they come in primarily 3-episode arcs. The first 3 episodes, the next 3 episodes, the next 3, and then the last 3 is kind of its own little thing. But I'm going to be talking about the show in regards to those episode arcs. So coming into the first episode arc, like the first 3 episodes of the show, I just want to share where I was coming into this show. If you watched our Rogue One video a couple weeks ago, you know that I wasn't a huge fan of Rogue One when it came out. I didn't connect with many of the characters. The one that I did was Jyn Erso, like the main character in the movie. And then we knew coming in that like all those characters were going to die. So it was kind of hard to connect with those characters. If you want more about my thoughts on Rogue One, go check out the video. There's a link down in the description. But the last thing that I want to share about Rogue One, because it connects here to Andor, is just my expectations for this show were not very high because I didn't have Rogue One in high regards. But to be fair, I was going to give this show a chance because my biggest complaint about Rogue One is that I didn't care about many of the characters. But now we're going to get a 12-episode deep dive into one of the characters. So I was like, okay, this is fixing the like major complaint that I complained about. I'm not going to be a jerk about it. I'm going to be open to this new series. So I came in like not super hopeful, but like, you know, I guess there was a little bit of optimism buried deep inside. So we get into the first 3 episodes. They all came out, I think all 3 episodes, like the first arc came out all on the same day. It might have been the first 2 episodes, I can't remember. But essentially, within a week, I got to see the first 3 episodes. And it kind of confirmed my worries about the show because these things started to pop up again. I didn't like it. I was bored through most of the first arc. Like there just wasn't much going on. I started to care about Cassian a little bit, kind of like I cared about Jyn Erso, the main character in Rogue One, a little bit towards the beginning, but nothing really grabbed me from the beginning. And it was kind of weird because I listened to a lot of like pop culture videos and podcasts and that sort of thing, and people were ranting and raving about it, which everybody ranted and raved about Rogue One, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like I don't get why people are ranting and raving about this thing that I didn't really enjoy. So after those first 3 episodes, I was like not overwhelmed. I was not underwhelmed because I didn't have much high expectations. I was just whelmed, I guess, you know, like right there in the middle of like, I wasn't excited about this. This didn't do anything to win me over in the first arc. But the good news is there were more arcs after the first one, the second arc and the third arc. So episodes 4 through 6 and then 7 through 9 were absolutely incredible. Like really, really, really good. So, the first arc was essentially our introduction to Cassian, to Ferrix, like the main place that he grew up. And the second arc was about like really his first his first event that he did with the rebellion. So Stellan Skarsgård, who is an actor that I absolutely enjoy from his other movies and TV shows, plays Luthen, who's one of the first rebellion leaders. We hadn't met him before, and he was pretty cool. And so we get, like towards the end of that first arc, we have Luthen invite Andor into this, like not officially into the rebellion, but like as a contractor, essentially. Like, hey, I want to use your skills to come. And essentially it was a heist. They were doing a bank heist. So this 3-episode arc was a heist arc, and it was very much enjoyable. So it's these spies trying to figure out how to, they've been working on this for years, infiltrating the base. And one of my key things that I really liked from this section is Cassian teaching these other rebels, like all you have to do to like blend in, if you're like trying to sneak into like the bad guy's base, all you have to do like into the Empire's base here, which is like where they store a ton of money, like a bank, all you have to do is walk in confidently, because like the pride of the Empire is so high that they don't think that anybody can just sneak in. So like they're expecting this big force to come in to try to challenge them, if anybody was going to challenge them, but not just somebody just casually walking in, which is what they do. So they go through the heist, they steal the money, but like what I really liked is like obviously it's nothing in there's no Catholic in Star Wars, right? But it was cool because part of this second arc, there was a group of like traditional faith people. Again, I'm not saying it's Catholicism, but it's people who were like older, kind of an older faith sticking around as people were, and it was kind of dwindling and people were, it was trying being suppressed and that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, there's some similarities here. And they kept talking about the eye, and it was this like essentially like this light show, think like Northern Lights, but on steroids. And that was like the cover that our rebels were going to use to get out. And they kept talking it up, and they kept talking it up, and they kept talking it up about how beautiful and how pretty it was. Like the Empire didn't even want to work on this day because they like they keep hearing about the eye, and they want to see the eye, which is this beautiful light show. And so Cassian is flying out the ship whenever they're escaping. And man, they talked it up so much, and it was beautiful. Like it met those high expectations that they set, and it was beautiful. And it was like a lot of like these Disney Plus shows have been 6 or 8 episodes. So through 6 episodes, it felt like a finale. The season could have ended there, and I would have been fine. Like it was really, really good and a really cool finale to that second arc. Then we move into the third arc, which the third arc is, we had a heist for the second arc. We had an introduction for the first arc, a heist for the second arc, and then a prison break for the third arc. And really cool. So Cassian ironically enough, gets unlawfully and thrown into jail. It's ironic because he actually stole a ton of money from the Empire, but they don't know that. He gets thrown in for just standing around, right? There's some irony there, which I thought was interesting. But this is where we really see Cassian Andor like really start to become a leader. Like he is, we've seen him be a spy. We've seen him be, strong. We've seen him do the hard thing, right? Like in Rogue One, it starts with him killing an informant. In this show, it starts with him killing 2 people that were going to reveal that he was in some place that he shouldn't be. Like he is a good guy, but he is willing to do the hard thing. So it kind of puts him in this like gray area. But this is where we start to see him become like a leader and caring about other people, not just caring about himself. So he gets thrown in prison, and the spy in him is looking around and seeing like, oh, this is how often they change guard. This is what happens when the guard changes. He's learning about the prison. He's learning, and like there are people that have been in this prison for years and years and years. And he's seeing like, okay, how can we get out? And of course, over the 3 episode arc, he orchestrates them getting a way out. And like again, we get to the end of this arc. The end of this episode feels like a finale. Like it feels like it could have been the finale for the show. So Kino Loy, who's played by the guy who plays Gollum, and he was in the Planet of the Apes movie, Andy Serkis, gets to play a person looking like Andy Serkis. He's not Gollum or an ape. Like he's a guy. And he's just absolutely incredible in this. He gives a speech at the end where Cassian, it was kind of this interesting moment because you think Cassian is like, oh, the hero of the story, but he knows that even in leadership, sometimes you need to push other people forward in leadership, which is what he does with Kino Loy. He pushes him forward. Kino gives this incredible speech about who he is, how long he's been in the prison, and that it's now time to rise up. And people in the prison know who he is. They respect him, and that's what helps them to rise up together. They fight against the Empire, and they all get to escape by saying one way out. And one of my favorite moments in this series was actually not the finale of this arc, but the end of the second episode in this arc. So that would have been episode 8, because this Andy Serkis's character, Kino Loy, had kind of given in to like, we're just in prison, get with the program. As long as we stick with the program, nobody's going to die. Let's just do our work. He was kind of, resolved to not make any waves, right? He was kind of defeated. But whenever he has this breaking point where one of the people on his crew dies, and Cassian has been trying to like say, "Hey, can you help me get out? Can you help me? Can you help all of us get out?" And Cassian had asked him multiple times, like, how trying to learn about the prison that they're in, how many guards are on each level. And then Andy Serkis' character, he says never more than 12, and it's just this shift in him of like, no, I'm in. He's like, I'm either dying getting out of here because or I'm getting out of here because I'm not just going to stay here and accept the status quo anymore. I thought it was really cool standing up against the bully. It was pretty awesome. Okay, so again, we get this one way out. They all storm out of the prison, and we get this beautiful scene of them all swimming away. Unfortunately, Kino Loy can't swim, so he kind of sacrificed himself. He got everybody else out and was a leader in doing so, but he himself didn't get out. I thought it was really interesting. Kind of like Moses, leading his people to the promised land. He didn't get to go in, but everybody else did. Finally, we get to the last arc, and this is really where Mon Mothma and Stellan Skarsgård, his character, really get to shine. We get Stellan Skarsgård's character, and he's just an incredible actor. But Luthen gets to give this speech about what he has given up for the rebellion, because somebody's kind of challenging him. Somebody else who has given their life to the rebellion. They're like, I've given up time with my family. I've given up safety and security and peace. He's like, what have you given up? Because it seems like Luthen's living this, like kind of cush life in Coruscant. And Luthen gives this incredible speech. He's like, I've made my mind a sunless space. I have to use the tools of my enemy against them. Essentially, he is like, we talked about the gray earlier. It's like, I love these characters. I think I connect with characters that are flawed but doing the right thing. Because a lot of times I look at Luke Skywalker and I don't see myself in Luke Skywalker because he's kind of the perfect one, the chosen one, right? But when we get to people like Luthen and honestly enough, like Cassian Andor, who are flawed but constantly trying to do the right thing, and maybe even having to do some things that aren't, the best in order to accomplish these goals. I connect with people like that because that seems pretty true to like my life. It's like I'm trying to do the right thing. I don't always do the right thing. I'm flawed. I've made my mistakes, but even when I make mistakes, I'm still trying to grow and trying to get better as a person, as a man, as a father, as a Christian. Like all of these things, I'm trying to get better. So I connect with characters like this. And essentially what he's saying is like, I've given up the ability to be Luke Skywalker, like to be the perfect one, the chosen one. I'm doing the rough stuff of this war so that other people can have freedom. He's like, I know I'm not going to be able to experience it, but I'm doing what I can to accomplish it. And he has this moment, like, man, one of the coolest and like most surprising moments, because it's like in the previous two arcs, it's like when they're doing a heist, they're gonna get the money. Like things are gonna go, things are gonna go wrong, but they're gonna get the money. Like we know Cassian was gonna get out of prison, so it's like, yes, the prison break was cool, but we knew it was gonna happen. But Luthen has this fight where it's just him in a ship versus a huge Empire ship, and it pales in comparison. And the way that he is able to get out of it, like, I mean, it's just incredible. The fact that he flies like Anakin Skywalker flies. Like everybody knew that Anakin, who became Darth Vader, is like the best pilot in all of the galaxy. And the surprises of how good he is in combat, how good he is, and like some of the surprises he has on his ships, like practically lightsabers come out of his ship. Like just like it was like the most like, oh my gosh moment of the entire series. It was just shocking, and it was like kind of a cool moment for him. Ultimately, I think what was interesting about the show is that, like, I already said I hated the first 3 episodes. I loved the middle 2 arcs, like those 6 episodes. The finale of the show actually kind of fell a little bit flat for me. The big reveal, like the stinger at the end of the show, it's like when it showed that like everything that Cass had been working on in prison was like building the Death Star. It's like, I don't know anybody that watched the show that didn't know that's what they were building, like something that having to do with the Death Star. And just like the final fight, it was like, it was cool. Like the part that I did like it, I'll be honest, is like our cute little droid, B2 Emo. Like what a great droid that they introduced to this show. But him showing Marva, Cassian's like adoptive mom, who died, her speech was really cool, and that being like the impetus for everybody else to rise up. It actually reminded me of one of my favorite movies of the year in RRR, like one person's death or near death, like causing other people to rise up in rebellion. Like this was the breaking point. It's like that was cool to see, but like the rest of the finale and kind of that final arc felt a little bit flat for me. So I liked the show a lot. I really enjoyed like that middle arc. The last arc was pretty good, and that first arc was just terrible. So overall, I give it like a 7 or 8 out of 10, maybe closer to 8. Let's say 7.9, just to be close. Not quite an 8, but there. The two like faith points that really stuck out to me, the two things that I was like, I didn't even really have to think about it, was the one of them that I already started sharing about, of Cassian and Luthen and a lot of people in these rebellions, like being good people. We got to see Cassian even growing as a good person. He was all about himself at the beginning, and he starts this arc and this journey towards being a great rebellion leader who we know from Rogue One ultimately gives his life for the cause, right? And I thought it was interesting that the rebellion leaders, both in Rogue One and in Andor, went and found a troubled young person, right? So Jyn was a teenager, Cassian was late teens, early 20s, something like that, right? They seek him out because he has a good skill set that they need, and they're a little rough around the edges, right? So I think that's interesting, because like working in youth ministry for years and having a big connection to God really for the first time when I was in youth ministry as a kid, it's like somebody who's rough around the edges that gets an invitation into this bigger cause, like this rebellion, something to go countercultural against what's going on. Whether it's fighting the empire or living a life for Christ, which is countercultural in our culture today. I just thought that was a cool invite, but then also like the clarity of like, you don't have to be a Luke Skywalker to be welcomed into this thing. Not everyone in the rebellion was a like perfect, stoic, always making the right decision like Luke Skywalker. Sometimes it was a little dirty, and there's room for that in the rebellion. There's room for that in the church. There's room for that in the kingdom of God, right? So like, yes, we shouldn't be stuck as somebody just in the dark gray, but hopefully we get a little bit lighter gray as we move towards the light, right? The other thing that I really enjoyed about this show is I think with 1 or 2 episodes left in the season, I rewatched Rogue One. My son watched it for the first time, and I enjoyed that movie so much more after watching most of Andor, because it just wasn't out. The last episode or 2 wasn't out yet. But rewatching Rogue One, after having this connection with Cassian and understanding his backstory and knowing who he is and what makes him tick and what he cares about, and kind of seeing his journey, made me like Rogue One more, because that part that was lacking in Rogue One, I have this connection for. And I was like his death meant a lot more to me in Rogue One. It's like Jyn's death meant a lot to me the first time I watched Rogue One, and now both of them did. So the point that I almost immediately clicked for me is like, this is why it's important for us to learn about our faith, because sometimes we hear stories and there's like, maybe we don't connect with it the first time that we hear a certain gospel story, or we hear, something that Jesus said, or we hear something that Paul wrote. It might not connect with us, or we hear an Old Testament story and we're like, how does that have anything to do with the rest of the story of salvation history? But it's like, once we hear these other stories that we know are connected, they start to open up both of those stories. Like, I enjoyed Andor more because I knew where it was going in Rogue One. I enjoyed Rogue One more because I knew where it came from with Andor. So it's like we say all the time about the scriptures in particular, is that the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, meaning that the Old Testament is like preparing the way, and the New Testament is concealed there. And and then the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. It's like all of God's people lived through the Old Testament, but it wasn't fully revealed what it all meant until Jesus came to save us. So whether it's scripture or it's other things about like church teaching, it's like we might have these holes. We might not fully get it. We might not fully have the, like, how does this all connect to our faith? But the more we learn about one topic might start to open up our understanding of other topics. And then that understanding might start opening up our understanding of other topics. So these are stories that we love. Like, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. And like every time I watch Clone Wars, the TV show, it helps me to better enjoy the prequels. Every time I watch Rebels, it helps me to better appreciate the original trilogy. Like, all of these other stories captivate me and kind of bring me in more to the story, help me feel part of the story. But the cool thing about Christianity is, like, I can't ultimately be part of the Star Wars story, but I can be part of the story of salvation history, because it, kind of like Rafiki saying, it lives in you. Like, it lives in us. Like, the story of salvation, like, we are part of it. Right. So those were my big takeaways from Andor. Let me know what you guys thought. Like, what were some of your favorite moments? What were some of your least favorite moments? Did you like it overall? Did you stick with it after the boring first 3 episodes like I did, to be rewarded by some very good television? Please let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's not podcast. I'm used to doing podcasts. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit subscribe. Check out the rest of our videos in our Catholic Perspective series. Like I've mentioned a few times before, we have Rogue One, a Catholic Perspective video. We have some more Star Wars stuff. We have Marvel stuff. We have some of our favorite movies. Also on the channel, we've got a weekly podcast, Catholic Comedy and Entertainment. And we also have, speaking of expanding our knowledge of Catholicism, we have our Catholic Foundation series, which is like an introduction or reintroduction into the teachings, the 10 most basic teachings of Catholicism that we all need to understand if we're going to be Catholic. So I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. Hit the like button, hit share, subscribe, and check out the rest of our Catholic Perspective series. Until next time, God bless.